When it comes to Ukraine, I think we have in this assembly been very much on target with what we have done since the 24th of February. I think we have been very clear with our public messaging. We have not had any ambiguity in our condemnation of what has happened. I think the Bureau came out very strongly already immediately when the event unfolded while we were in Vienna. I think the President and other officials of the Assembly have been on record very strongly. I think we have to be very realistic about what we can do as Parliamentary Assembly. One of these is to speak up, to be a voice heard in all our parliaments. There is not, my predecessor used to say there is not an OSCE press. There is an American press, a German press, a French press, a UK press. I think all of you have used our messaging also in your own parliaments and made very clear what is the position of this Assembly. And of this I'm very proud of. Also, there were concerns from Minister Kuleba with some organizations on how you would use or how you would call this war, whether it's an attack, whether it's an assault, whether it's a special operation. I think here we've had no ambiguities. We've been very clear on what it is. We call things what it is. We've always done so, actually. We've done so from 2014 when we clearly called the annexation of Crimea a clear, gross, and uncorrected violation of the Helsinki Final Act, and we keep on calling it that way. There's been a discussion about the Parliamentary Assembly and the OSCE being a platform for dialogue, and here I'd like to be very clear, both with those who have expressed perplexities on expulsion or suspension of the Russian Federation from our Assembly, but those, of course, who have called for it. And here I speak to you, Arthur, we spoke earlier before, and if my son's picture were on those photos, I would come here and want fire and fury, and I would want to hear no reason, of course. I totally understand where you're coming from, and I totally understand the need for extreme strong sanctions for what you have seen with your own eyes and for what we see, not through propaganda, but what we see through real pictures on the screens every day. But, of course, the raison d'etre of this Assembly is indeed a place where we try to put together sides who have disagreements, sides who are at loggerheads. This is why the organization was established in the first place. Now, some will argue, okay, but if a member of the club has clear, gross, uncorrected violation of the rules of the game, what do you do with that member of the club? We cannot expel because expulsion is an issue of some rules of procedures in the governmental side of the organization. There is a precedent in 99, I think, 2000, when Yugoslavia, or in 91, sorry, when Yugoslavia was expelled or suspended from the organization with a consensus -1. This rule wouldn't apply this time because we understand that probably Belarus would not accept that, so would side with Russia. So that card probably is not, the legal card is probably not in play. But I would argue, regardless of the legal card, is there a political reason for calling for that? And here I do share the views of Vice President Lopatka, Richard Hudson, Christian, and others, that while it is extremely difficult to indeed engage in dialogue with one country who is the producer of those images we see, it is still a good opportunity to keep this forum open for that. Does it mean that you keep it open right now? The timing is of the essence here. But it gives the opportunity also, once you have a member of the club, to be inside the club, to hear what we are saying. Today, there is no Russian Federation member in this assembly, not even on a link. So what we've said, we've of course all agreed on this, but nobody has heard us outside this room. And I think there is value also in having the Russian Federation in the room or online hearing what we say, because sometimes also, I am not a big fan of naming and shaming, but sometimes when there is good reason for naming and shaming, maybe it's good that the person who is named and shamed hears us saying that. It's probably, Arthur, here, and I speak to you personally, because it comes from my background. You know, I worked in the Balkans, and I have myself dealt with people who have been considered war criminals, who have been, by the ICTY, passed on as war criminals. And I have negotiated between war criminals and those war criminals were considering terrorists, Albanian rebels. But kind of, one would say, you've dirtied your hands by shaking hands of war criminals and terrorists. Probably yes, but this is the role that an organization like the OSCE plays. You know, you talk to both sides, you try to put them together, and somebody mentioned, as we can see now between Armenia and Azerbaijan, there is a process of dialogue, and so it's dirty work. Sometimes it's very difficult, and you know, you can feel sick to your stomach, but it's what we do here in this assembly. If we just want to focus on the sanctioning aspect, we've done this, I think, and we should do it at the level where it really hurts, and I think it's been done. I don't know how sustainable it will be, Peter, if we go as far as also total blockade of energy resources, but this is not for me to comment on, because I don't know how sustainable it is in the European public opinions, a sustained, strong oil embargo, gas embargo for the next 2 years, how leaders will manage to have their public opinions follow them. I would like to see the public opinions of Europe standing for the principles that our Ukrainian friends are fighting for in Ukraine. But the other part from our side is that we really should keep this place here as the only place where it's possible to do this. It's the only club still open. In the Council of Europe, the Russian Federation is out. I was in Washington last week, and Vladimir Kara-Murza, who is not a friend of the Russian regime, was very much upset because he says all the cases that were presented at the European Court of Justice against the Russian regime have now been dropped. So by expelling the Russian Federation, we have expelled all those who protest against the Russian regime, and they no longer have a tool, after they have exhausted all the legal remedies in Russia, to appeal to a European court to go against the Russian. So let's not cut the branch where we're sitting on. That's my message. But again, Arthur, that you come here and you say this, I totally understand it. And again, I would say even more if I was coming from where you come from and if a picture of my son was on the screen.